Bethany, I'm so happy to have you here.
I just want to go do a big happy dance.
I know, it's awesome. Super fun. So
Hmm.
everyone, this is Bethany. She's a certified facilitator of the Work of Byron Katie. And like some other people that I've gotten this fabulous chance to talk with about the work, I actually don't know a ton about your entry into the work, how you came across it, what was going on, then what happened. So tell me, like what was
Yeah.
going on in your life, and then how did you come across, the work?
So I came across the work, or really the work found me in 2009. At that time, I can't do math well right now, but somewhere mid late 20s.
Yeah.
And I was engaged at the time and living in Texas. And I was on this spiritual pursuit in terms of like I had just become a yoga teacher. And so I started opening my mind around yoga philosophy and like, just this way of finding more peace and love in your life. But when I was diving into yoga philosophy, like, I would read these things about acceptance and not living in non-judgment and, unconditional peace and love. And I'm like, this sounds really nice, but how do we do this? And then it's like, oh, all the answers are within you. And I'm like, where are they? I don't understand. I just feel like a terrible person because I do
Yeah.
judge. I judge and I'm hard on myself and I'm hearing all these wonderful things and it sounds great. And yes, I can do my yoga practice. I know it is, I feel great when I do yoga, but it just felt like something was missing.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
at that point in my time, I actually was, most people go through rebellious stages, maybe teenage years or so. And with my parents, it hit late 20s. And I just, when I started this new spiritual hippy dippy life and met my what became husband, at the time, it was not a love at first sight, joyful experience for my family. And so I was at war with my parents and really suffering around it and feeling, like I want them to accept me and love me the way I am and, see that this new life is amazing for me. And there was a lot of arrogance, in that as well. It was just like, love me as I am now, as I yelled those words at them. So anyways, I was in turmoil around that. And I think it was like one of our friends had said, hey, there's this lady with these questions. And she had a fear of flying. And she said, and then I asked myself these questions and it was gone. I don't have a fear of flying anymore. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool and interesting. So that was like my first, I just heard of Byron Katie. And then she offered a workshop nearby in Texas. And so we decided to just go and check her out. And it was in Commerce, Texas, of all places. Never been there, tiny little town. And it was just a conference where she would invite people one by one up to do the work. And it was my first experience of Byron Katie was just genuine and authentic. It was like, oh my gosh, here's all the things I've been reading about. Like this lady's living it.
Um,
And she has this process, really simple process for us to live it too. And, the four questions and turnarounds, to be honest, my criticism of it at first was that it was too simple. I was
mhm.
like, there's no freaking way this can be the answer to all of our suffering. Like, you got to be kidding me. So I challenged it. And at that point, I think we started doing like the work together and practicing the questions. And then I remember a distinct moment where I was convinced to really dive into the practice was another event she hosted in Houston. And that was at the height of my parental turmoil. I was just like at my wit's end with my parents. And so here we are in Houston at the Unity Church, which is massive. It's like 700 people there, packed house. And
Wow.
I am I can't say anymore, very shy person. And I just watched my hand go up. It was like enough suffering. My hand goes up and I'm like looking at my hand up like, oh shit. And she calls on me. And the microphone gets handed to me. I stand up and it was just like, you know, one of those shaky moments.
Yeah.
And, you know, I shared with her, I had just read the book, I Need Your Love, Is It True? And it was like the story of my life of, you know, perfectionism and seeking love and approval and just always looking for it out there. And then it was highlighting that how that dynamic was showing up with my parents. So I shared with her, you know, like, I'm like, thank you for this book. And like, I am in the biggest kahuna with my parents right now. And I just don't know what to do. So she invited me to role play with her. So she's on stage, I'm in the audience, and she's like, all right, I want you to be, I'm going to be your parents. No, I'm going to be you with a clear mind. That was her role.
Yeah.
Bethany with a clear mind, which was not happening at that moment. And then I got to be my parents. Wow. And she invited me to come at her with like every criticism, every terrible thing they ever said, like just go for it. And I did. And I got like totally lost in the role. I was like, screw you, your relationship's not real. You're just drinking the Kool-Aid. And, but, you know, like I just start lashing and going. And I just watched her and she just sat there and she like looked at me and listened and just, you know, listen. And I just I went and listened. And then finally, like I emptied, you know, there was nothing more for me to yell at her about. And she paused and there's just this moment of silence. And she goes, oh my gosh, she goes, they miss you.
Oh.
And like, I still get emotional just thinking about it right now. It hit me like right in the heart. And it was just like, I so fucking miss them too. Like it was this beautiful, like, I miss them. And I miss me, you know, like, and I miss this old, like, where we got along and it was easy and simple. And so it just connected me right back to, oh my goodness, there's just love here. Like that's what's underneath all this pain and fear. And so that's when I signed up for the school and just started diving in to a big practice of the work. And my relationship with my parents, it was just magical to see how quickly things change. Once I took a step back and stopped trying to like force this new life on them and just be with them, you know, in non-judgment. And I joke that, you know, like, well, how did you do that? I'm like, well, I stopped being an asshole to them. You know, like all these things I'm like, you need to love me. I'm like, well, how about I love me and start there and then see them as human and, you know, that they just miss me, love me, wanted, you know, to be in my life in a certain way. And, you know, it was just, I saw love. And so that relationship is phenomenal now, but that was my first intro of like, whoa, that this works. And then like most things, you know, I go to the school, actually we went to the school together and then practice it a whole bunch and then come, you know, maybe 4 or 5 years. And then I just stopped. I like had such a half-assed practice of it. I was like, is it true? Nah, whatever. Let's dinner. Let's go shopping. Or, you know, like I just stopped doing it. And I noticed like a huge difference. And, you know, at that time I was living in Austin and running a bed and breakfast. And it was like a crazy, crazy, crazy world of, you know, on call 24 hours. And it was anyways, it was my dream job, but it was really stressful for me. And so, I just watched, you know, those emotional roller coasters get like higher, lower, and I didn't feel grounded in it. And I just remember one day watching an interview with her. I can't remember which one it was. And I don't even know what she was saying, but she was talking about, you know, the practice of inquiry. And I was just reminded of how I felt when it was an ongoing practice in my life. And I just like started crying. And I was like, oh yeah, like that really did work for me. And so then in that moment, I decided to sign up for the certified facilitator program. And I did it to hold myself accountable because this girl's good at getting out of her work.
I just think that's some sort of state of mind, you know, just what mind does. It's like, okay, we're done with that, or keep moving, moving on. There's got to be something more. Wait a minute. You know, we just start thinking about, I want to say something about that. Just the power of resolving something with parents. You know, it makes me think of Katie saying mother, father, sister, brother, like just go back, be in who all the soup that you were swimming in, these original kind of stories. And yeah, the same, I would always have the same exact thing, like love my mother, love my father so much. My father died very young. So my thoughts about him were he of cancer.
Yeah.
And that he, you know, left. He left. I didn't, you know, wasn't like it's his fault in a way, but like there is a fault, a state of like reality is mean because it
Yeah.
takes people away, you know, like your father. And I just had this sort of, that's like a resentful or a sense of looking at reality like it's dangerous, you know, you can lose.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mother, my thoughts about her were like, I would just always think she's controlling, she's trying to make me do stuff all the time, you know. And it would come in the smallest things. Like I remember doing the work on that, and the scene of her, we're all at the big giant family thing like we always have at her place, and I was pouring salad dressing on a salad, and from way across the room she says, not so much, you always put too much salad dressing on the salads, like that. And I'm like, I could feel it.
Yeah.
It like right there, it kind of went, I felt, instead of like how dare you talk to me like this, you all, or like that, it was more like the sadness underneath, like, oh my God, seriously, I always, like, and I just felt this kind of a heart, like a more feeling it. And then I said to her, it was like, stay here, don't leave, you know, inside of me. Done the work on these previous kind of scenes, such a mild scene in a way, don't leave. And I said, Mom, like salad dressing poised like this, Mom, really? Like, oh, I'm so bummed out right now. And then she was like, oh, honey, coming, like standing up from where she was, going through all my sisters and all the family coming over. I didn't mean it like that. Go ahead. And, you know, like we worked out this whole thing about the salad. Like if she doesn't want much dressing, she can take some out right now, and I'll put this on, and maybe I'll put, you know, it was just very funny, but it was like something alive there, instead of this is what's true and I just have to work with it because she's, you know, she's always trying to run my life. What an amazing thing. It changed.
Such like, it's an open mind.
Yeah.
Came into that moment. And then instead of like, gosh, what happens is like just this past version of our parents. We see all the other times she said this and that and this or that, you know, and like, and that's what we see. And that's who we're talking to in that moment. But that's not who that is. That's just someone who doesn't want a lot of salad dressing, you know, like that's it. But our minds make so much more of it. And then that resentment, my God, it builds up to be just, well, for me, an explosion, you know, at some point.
Yeah. Isn't that great? It's just relax that, you know, they think I'm doing it wrong, and how
it's personal. You know, it feels personal. It's not actually his, but
amazing. And then I love how you're just sharing, you know, even though like that parents, wow, if you just had that, like a rest inside around parents, you know, what else, you know, that's an amazing chunk of life in some ways. And then still this, like, who needs to do the work? Like, whatever. Like,
I knew I kind of needed, but I was like, it's fine. Isn't it? Whatever.
Oh, I love you.
So it was funny, that certification program, you know, it's usually you do it over 2 to 4 years. And I was like 2 years, like boot camp myself, and just was doing the work left, right, every possible way it held, you know, in the curriculum. And it was amazing to see, like, you know, I dove into a lot of challenges with my husband and relationship stuff. And like, I just watched him change before my eyes. I watched my job at the B&B change before my eyes, where like, I would just be, the moment a guest wasn't happy about something, oh my God, my world might as well have ended. I just felt responsible for them
Mm.
and defensive or this or that. And I just learned like a whole nother way to experience all of it. And it was so much kinder and peaceful and easier to deal with. So I was also teaching yoga at that time, and I had this whole big plan of launching yoga and the work together, and being like the first person that did it, and thinking I was just amazing. This is summer of 2015. I'm like, I'm 33 at that time, like on top of the world. And I was like, we decided to leave the B&B, go back to Dallas, and had this whole new career plan and retreats and all that set up. I had just done my first retreat actually in Costa Rica. And 2 months later, my greatest yoga teacher decided to arrive instead. And that was a very aggressive form of breast cancer.
Wow.
So here I am like, oh, I'm ready to go out there. And I'm like, or I'm ready to live this work
Wow.
and practice what I preach, because life had a different plan for me, which turned out to be the most amazing plan that I could have never thought of, because
Right.
it was
Yeah.
cancer was not on my radar at all. I was like organic eating and always, took care of myself. My mind now, was in check, and all of that. And still managed to grow some rockin' cancer. So,
Wow. Isn't that something? Yeah.
yeah.
So as you know, I have also had that moment of a
hmm
diagnosis, you know,
So this was 2006 for you, is what you
2006 for
shared.
me. Yes. Thank goodness I had the work. There was so much changing,
hmm
and I was doing the work a ton on my, at the time, divorce. It was right after, it was a couple years after my first school for the work. I thank goodness. I mean, it just that I had the work, but I could still feel that moment of when the doctor comes in and says, we're gonna glad you came in. She took the stitches out of a biopsy. There's just 4 stitches from a, a little bump on my leg, a little tumor on my leg. Turned out to be bigger underneath the surface than it was on top. And she said, I'm going to talk to you about the results of the biopsy after she took out the stitches. But why don't you get dressed first, and then I'll come back in and we'll talk about that. That's all she said. And I had this adrenaline flood through. I mean, I could just feel it from what she was saying. We have
hmm
to have a conversation about this. Massive adrenaline
Yeah.
without even the word cancer, which I
Yeah.
then heard a few minutes later. I was just like shaking as I got dressed, putting on my pants and coming up, the bandage that was there on my leg. I was like, what? I just, and that whole feeling, and in the car on the way home, wait, is it true? I'm going to die. That's
Yep.
basically what it's basically,
Yeah.
I am going to die. I'm going to suffer and die. Yeah. The survival kicking in intensely.
Yeah. And like our whole, I have no, didn't really have a reference point for cancer much, other than like movies I saw and stories I heard from other people. So, the world story is, this is bad news.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a nightmare and death. Like it's not,
Yeah.
I couldn't make any other associations with it,
Yeah.
at that point.
Wow.
And what's interesting for me, so the diagnostic phase was actually kind of around 4 weeks or so, was
Okay.
because I had, this was not my first lump. I actually started getting lumps in my late 20s. And at first, the first one, of course, I freaked out and didn't realize you could have a lump in your breast and it actually not be cancer. But I would go in, and they would do through ultrasounds. It would always be a swollen cyst or a lymph node. And I just learned that, like, you have really dense breast tissue. It's called fibrocystic breast disease. It had a name, and this is how you monitor them. And, so I learned like how to monitor and not freak out. And this was the lump I didn't get checked out right
Oh,
away. This was the one. So
God.
it was almost like a whole year later when I felt the lump getting bigger, and then I felt a lump in my armpit. And I was like, oh, this is different. Okay. because I really didn't believe it was possible for someone as young and healthy as me with no family history to get cancer.
Yeah.
And so when I started going in that diagnostic phase, yes, I've been trained for this, and I surely just tossed it all out the window and didn't do any of it at first, and just completely panicked and freaked out, and
Yeah.
was just like spiraling down.
Oh,
And it's funny because I can say now that I'm so grateful that that happened, because it was during the diagnostic phase where, like you, I didn't know for sure yet.
mm,
I didn't know. And physically felt like the healthiest I've ever felt. So,
sure.
so I realized in that moment, oh, cancer can't be the problem here.
Oh,
I don't even know if I have it. But what I'm thinking and believing and imagining about cancer, that's what sent me spiraling down. So it was such a direct
yeah.
proof of, oh shit, the suffering's in my mind right now.
Yeah.
It's not cancer.
Yeah.
So that's when I finally suffered enough to dive back into the work, and I started calling the helpline, actually. And so here I am, a certified facilitator, but I'm calling the helpline that I also volunteer on, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm not kidding. Even that first inquiry, which was, I have cancer, and I didn't know it yet, but I'm like, I'm convinced it's cancer. My life is over. And,
Yeah.
if treatment would be terrible, I'll have side effects the rest of my life. Surely my quality of life is over if I'm not dead yet, all my dreams need to
Right.
be canceled. And it was such a whole life lived in my head. And it was a terrible one.
Yeah.
So, but I felt so much relief so quickly from doing the work, first in the helpline. Then I started journaling and doing it myself. Some friends reached out, and I just was like a yes to all of it. And I'm not kidding, within 2 weeks, I went from complete terror about cancer to excitement and inspiration about it, where I
Wow.
was like, you know what? I can see all these possibilities of how my life could actually be even better because of cancer. And so, I get it. If I have it, great life. If I don't have it, great life. And I was really in touch with that by the time I had the biopsy.
Wow.
I joke that I I should have had cameras with me, because I was just on this. I was so just in touch with reality and not my imagination, that it was like, a warm blanket. Oh my God, thank you. The lady who's doing my biopsy, her name is Joy. That's the coolest. And I'm like, oh, look how big the needle is. It was so interesting to go through it. And I remember the doctors being like, wow, you're really calm. And they were, and I told them what I had been doing, and they're like, you could really help other people, with this. And I was like, yeah, maybe I will, it felt wonderful. So by the time I did hear the words, "You have cancer," it was a phone call, and I was on the couch with my husband. We knew the call was coming at some point. So I was stalking my phone for sure. And then we saw the doctor's number, and was like, oh God, this is it. And it definitely was
Wow.
time slowed down, I remember every nanosecond of her on the speaker, our foreheads are touching, hovering over it. And, she said, I'm afraid I've had bad news. We did find cancer in both the breast and the armpit. And, it was just very surreal, because
Sure.
I also thought maybe I had done enough work to maybe bypass cancer, have a spiritual bypass, oh, I've already learned and evolved.
Right.
I don't need cancer anymore to teach me.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned. I got it.
Yeah, that was an agenda. It was very surreal, but it didn't have that same crushing effect that I think it would have had I not worked my mind, up to that point. So I was so motivated, by how I felt in the beginning of the process, that I was like, all right, the work is that's my buddy, throughout that whole journey, which turned out to be about a 2-year treatment process.
Wow.
And not to say that I stayed on that elated, lovely, peaceful. No, there were definitely times I went back down again and up and down again and up. And, but the work is what pulled me out, of that pain.
And
each
I think
time.
that's what it's like, the unnecessary suffering. In some ways, it's not about not crying, or just
Right.
feeling like, wow, I am not in charge of that. Have a temporary body on this planet Earth. And
Yeah.
just, watching all that. I remember thinking, doing the work, having cancer. So I had this tumor cut out. And then it turned out I didn't need any radiation or anything else. It was very contained.
And this was in your leg.
It was in my leg, yeah,
Okay.
my right
Interesting.
thigh,
Okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I was also awake during the operation, and I remember being in the operation, and it's quite deep. They go all around, and they go out in a whatever millimeter direction, and on every part, to make sure there's no cancer. Then they go test
They
it.
get clear margins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you wait, and then they
You were awake for that?
awake for it.
Ooh, that would be a mental
And
process.
I kind of they had where you cauterize something. I mean, I've had another surgery before, but um, I wasn't awake,
Mhm.
and they were cauterizing I couldn't feel anything, but they were cauterizing the leg, and there was so much smoke going up, and I watched the doctor looking, and I had tears just
Mhm.
coming out and going right down like this. Could feel them in my ears, and just, wow, what a crazy, it's so weird. I can't feel it. And like, do I have this body? It was just so interesting to be able to hear the sound. And my mother was there sitting in the waiting room. She was amazing. And I had
Mm.
so much support. But I did have the thought, I can't find solid turnarounds for why this is a great thing. I can't find them yet. Like my mom's here, little things, beautiful. My mom, so awesome. I'm kind of making friends in some way with cancer from my father being gone. And then there was all this disruption in my relationship. It's already on its way to divorce when this happened.
Mm. Oh.
And I just come off the school. It was like, I mean, my life was totally changing from what it looked like before the school for the work. And a couple days after being home and having the big bandage on my leg and just being very still and wearing pajamas for a few days, here comes this, like the second day home, here's a knock on the door, and it's my still husband, estranged, whatever's happening there, which I don't really know fully yet, at the door with 24 pink roses. And I remember it just felt like this, like I don't just so my heart was so open. And I just, like, when he left, I thought, with our children, he had our children with him because he was taking care of them while I was in the surgery and then at home for that day. And when he left, I thought, that's my example. I mean, I thought it was like he was saying, I care about you, I love you, I'm sorry, because he had left the marriage, quote, I was questioning, he left it, is that true? I don't know if that's really the story, but it just felt like such a beautiful connection. And I love that you're sharing, you were finding it just from when you don't even know yet, and then just moving into the turnarounds and just the awareness. Isn't that wild? It's just a thought that puts you where you're feeling your thoughts.
Yes. Yeah.
And to question them, how amazing. But yeah, I also like, it's not about being happy. This is so great all the time. No.
No. Yeah. And I even found like in the deep pain. So the evening after I heard those words, I just like crumbled it into a child's pose, on the floor and just started wailing and like went into the bathroom. I think I was dry heaving over the toilet at some point. Like it was all just coming out of me. But I have to say, I've done a lot of weird emotional work stuff. So like, that wasn't new or different for me, but there was no suffering. So I could be in that tier of and I would see all the images, I'd see all the thoughts, and I would just let my body like do its thing. And it was not to say I experienced that every time I'm in what I now referred to as an emotional exorcism. That's what it felt like. Because I hit that, was so interesting. So I had 6 months of aggressive chemo, a double mastectomy, 5 week or 6 weeks of radiation, and then reconstruction was the final thing. And now I'm on a hormone therapy for 10 years,
Yeah.
which is a whole nother story of making friends with medicine, because that was surely not my my way of living before any of this.
Yeah.
But what was so fascinating is when cancer was over. So like there's no proof of cancer cells in my body anymore. I'm pronounced no evidence of disease. I don't know why they don't say you're cured, but whatever. In my mind, I was cured.
Yeah.
However, I wasn't in my actual mind. So it was interesting after the cancer journey, the emotions just hit so hard. And, I had been having a lot of challenges in my relationship too throughout cancer. Like
Mm.
I felt like it was making us closer in the beginning, but the moment that I chose Western medicine, he's also a very natural person and like someone who hasn't taken an aspirin in 10 years, and so it was a big conflict and just highlighted a lot of issues in our relationship. And so I was like coming out of that and coming out of all the treatment, like what just happened, and emotions just hit us shockingly. And then there was fear of it coming back, and then coming back with that you have 2 months to live conversation. And it was amazing. It just took over.
Yeah.
And that was profound. It was about a month or so, just profoundly like pain, and I couldn't do the work. I saw the thoughts. I knew it was because I was believing my thoughts, but I was like, I can't. And I had to just like feel my way through it and empty and empty and empty until it was empty. And then that's when I could take those thoughts, and I was ready. But it's interesting, like, yeah, sometimes I'm not ready to do it.
Yeah.
I don't, we people in the work say, all you need is an open mind. And no, it wasn't open. It just needed to feel. And that was a gift in itself, just being with myself in
Yeah.
rage and sadness and depression, and not trying to fix or change it. It was just like, okay, I'm here. And it was very intimate,
In a
a
way,
very
that's
intimate
beautiful.
experience.
Yeah. I love that. It's beautiful. It's kind of like, what are we talking about here? Argue with reality and you
Yeah.
lose. So if I'm arguing with my heart is broken,
Yep.
this isn't going the way I thought.
Mhm.
Like even that, letting it be there and run, and fantastic to have the work when ready. It's like there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah. But I could so clearly see how freedom from cancer is a state of mind, with that experience. Cause it's like, oh, I was in cancer, felt joyful, and, and here I am, there's no cancer. And then I'm in pain and suffering. So like
Yeah.
cancer free it's not a physical thing. Like I think you can be ravished with cancer and enjoy. And so like, I just I want to live my life where I can find that peace either way. But I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. If it lives in your mind as this constant fear of recurrence, which is really common,
Sure.
that's, it's not freedom from cancer.
Yeah.
I'm not cancer free.
I noticed that thought pop in, like how much cancer is in my family. And I have a sister who had breast cancer.
Yep. Yeah.
My youngest sister, so premenopause as well. And she just finished her tamoxifen, that thing that suppresses.
That's what I'm on now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And she's pretty amazing. She's pretty amazing also with the walking. And our mother had breast cancer at age 36. So,
Wow.
and has lived cancer free. And she's now 83 years old.
Love hearing these stories.
It's like something changed in her whole entire psyche with my mom back then. But it's such a teacher. And I love that you're sharing
Yeah.
that, and that like looking at thought and the power of thought, and that the mind is thinking. It's just busy. It just goes to work trying to help.
Yeah. It thinks it's being
anything.
very helpful.
Right. Not really discerning, like let's try this, whatever. What about this? What about that? And it's so just knowing that it doesn't We don't have to believe it.
Yeah.
You get to just,
Well, I notice it's like, yeah, you're right. Like mind is happening. Like it is happening. I can't control my thoughts. I can't pick and choose which ones come, which ones stay. Like, that whole, you create your reality, like, no, they just happen. But I noticed that, where mind becomes powerful, it's like, if I buy into it, depending on, if I believe it or not, it has, the power to make a challenge even harder, which is, what it was when, my life is over. I'm
right.
dying in a hospital bed. I can't live out any of my dreams anymore. Like those are not happening right now. That's
Yeah.
all an imaginary future. So
Yes.
it has, and that when I believe it makes this, what's happening right here, right now, like unbearable. It's so painful.
Yeah.
So then I notice like mine has the power to make it harder, or mine has the power to make it easier. So
Yeah.
when I kept like getting back in touch with what's real right here, right now, and I'm like, oh, I'm in a, body. Oh, wow, great. There are awesome doctors here, like taking care of it. We're all on the same page. We have the same end goal here. I love that they have years of training in cancer where I know nothing. So I can show
Right.
up and ask questions. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love eating healthy and I notice I feel better with side effects. So I'm going to keep doing this. And my
Yeah.
acupuncturist is taking care of me every week. And, like it was just like I could just see this kindness, support, throughout all of it that I don't think that's there for all of us, that support, but it's hard to see when you're just so stuck in scary thoughts. They're like blinders. It's like putting blinders on.
Yeah.
And so the work for me is like blinders off, and how is reality good? And it's not, it's not positive thinking. It's not an affirmation. It's like a genuine state of life is
Yeah.
good, and it's here for me and here to teach me and grow me. It's a genuine experience.
That's
And
beautiful. Good.
yeah,
Nice to mention. Yeah. How is it actually? Yeah. Just looking at what's supported here. How am I cared for? What's, is it true that the worst that could happen is happening anywhere except for in my mind?
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I can watch those things come across my, like I could get breast cancer too, you know,
yep.
um, got, cancer runs in my family. It's probably how I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Just like made it this far. I don't know. Just kind of a funny, and all that is just ticket, 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 ticket. And then of course, when I'm not thinking that, because I don't think it a lot, I don't remember, that's
Yeah.
go through my mind. It's not there at all. It's just not there at all. And to see all the support, even the support of being here, apparently being here, which is kind of a funny thing, temporarily, like
Yeah.
having a lifespan that's just this, however long it is, and that in the human condition, you can live a month to, 115, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Like that any thoughts that we have, that it sort of, it matters, and it's all the stories of it's better that it's much longer, and it might be, oh, I like that it's long and I've had all this, but I don't know, it's yeah, that it, even looking at all of it and feeling this experience and watching my sister and hearing my mother's story and yours, anyone who's had it, and then looking at how I carried the grief, incredible grief. It still feels like a heart piercing thing, but of my father dying of cancer. Cancer is so evil, 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 evil. What a mean, horrible, terrible evil, like fight at war.
Mm-hmm.
Because it took my dad. Um, he never even got to retire or see any grandchildren. Or, it's like, and then I just, it sort of shifted that, like, really would, if he lived till he was, 85, that would be, am I absolutely sure that would be way, way, way better?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. But when we assume we know it, it's so painful.
Yes. Yes. And can I even find that support of his passing, just being with it, like a sense of unconditional love.
Yeah.
and that I'm okay without him. I can even talk to him. It's not, am I actually without him? No.
Yeah.
Kind
That's
of
amazing.
Yeah. Wow. So you've written a book. You've
Oh,
written
I
a book
wrote a
about your
book.
experience.
Oh my gosh. When I, like in the beginning of the whole diagnostic phase, cancer stuff, I started waking up at 2 a.m. I like took a break from sleeping from 2 to 5 a.m. every morning and like could not stop writing.
Wow.
It was just like pouring out of me, and I would do inquiry, and then I would I've always loved journaling. I'm not trained in writing, in any way, but I've always loved it as a form of expression and healing. And then I started a blog at that point because I had a friend who was also young, diagnosed with cancer, and she started sharing publicly her experience, and I just loved it. Like I was like, oh, I'm learning so much. Like this is amazing. And so that inspired me to kind of start writing and then put it out there. And it gave like such a sweet sense of purpose and meaning and inspiration to the journey itself, where I was learning so much, and to be able to share it and hear people be like, wow, you really helped me today, or I look at this totally differently now. Like it just gave me like that juice, where I was like, I'm really meant to go through this. I don't know how I got it or what, but like I felt meant to be on the journey. And so yeah, I wrote throughout those 2 years, and then started, I knew I wanted to make it into a book. I've never written a book. I know nothing, about that, but I just started doing it and sitting and writing sessions and rewriting and over again. And then, yeah, it was, at the 5-year mark, almost to the day, I published this book baby and announced it on my 39th birthday. It was the coolest present ever. Of course, we're in the middle of pandemic, so we did like a Zoom book
Yes.
launch or whatever, and it was just so special. And I know cancer can come back at any time. Like that is a reality. I don't know if it will for sure, but I know many people who have been through the same exact treatment plan I have, and it's come back, or it's been this or that. So I'm just in touch with it, but not as a fear. I use it more as an inspiration now, where it's like, okay, like this could happen, and so how do I want to live my life now? And I don't want to die in regrets, regardless of what age this body is when it goes. I would love to know I lived this amazing full life, which I have, and in continuing to. So that was a big part of publishing the book, because I asked myself, like, well, how would I live if I knew I was dying? Like, how would I live if I got that, it's going to be, you have 2 months to live, conversation. And my number one thing was I would get this fucking book out into the world. And so I was like, okay, how about I do that now?
Beautiful.
Instead of waiting. But here she is. I joke that she's my book baby because I am profoundly infertile from cancer treatment. And so this is literally has felt like a birthing, my version of childbirth. I was pregnant for 5 years, but in terms of all the growing pains and fears of it being out and exposed, because it's of course my whole cancer story, but it is TMI on my personal life. Like I'm just an overshare naturally in this book. I look at what some of the things I wrote and I'm like, I cannot believe that I said that out loud, and that like my parents' friends are reading about my sex life, and that I talked about an enema that one time, and then it's just quite the overshare. But it's the book I wish I could have read in the beginning, and it didn't exist yet. And like the work is out there in the world in so many ways, but not in depth around pain and illness yet. So I really wanted to offer an example of how to move through any kind of diagnosis using the work, because like it doesn't just touch, it's not just a fear of dying. It's a chronic condition. A diagnosis affects everything in life. Like it, affected my relationships, my finances, my job, my ability to do it, just step back and not do it. And it impacted my body image, it changed so quickly. And physical pain, it was the school of cancer. Like it touched everything. So,
wow.
But the work was still it was just amazing to see how it supported every angle, of that pain. It
Yes.
was like, oh no, I can help with this too. What are you thinking and believing about your
Beautiful.
body, the
Yeah.
future, your bank account, health
All this.
insurance, doctors?
Love it. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I love that it's just sort of one step away from so that other those other things we think are required for survival
Hmm.
or happiness.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's awesome. Tell us where we can find that book, and I'll put the link underneath this.
Yeah, it's
YouTube.
on Amazon. So
Yay!
yeah, it's in the soft cover now. This is a soft cover. It's also in Kindle or ebook. And I really want to record an audio version of it. I just don't know how to do that yet. So I was like, I'll get this out, and there will probably be an audio lunch. I'm like a dork in terms of how excited I am to like read the audio and ad lib stuff, and because it's very much written in my own voice. A little too many cuss words, maybe, but that's just what happens in my brain. So welcome for everyone else
Raw, unedited. There
to
it
see
is.
where it's very raw. But yeah, it excites me to read it out loud too.
So
I
fun.
did a little reading at the book launch, and I was like, "Ooh, this is fun."
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's so
And
cool.
we'll see where it goes. It's fun. Like my work, I wanted to launch yoga in the work in the world, and now it's just fine tuned, to work with more people with around chronic conditions and pain
Yeah.
and illness. I know you've actually had a peace talk with Helena Montelius as
Yes.
well, and
Yes.
her and I partner with together to do the Making Peace with Disease online series. So
Wow.
she, went through a really similar journey
I-
that I did, mental journey, but with HIV, and found, that same freedom and joy and acceptance around it. And so
Yeah.
yeah, we do these classes together now. We're actually in the middle of one right now, and it's just like it's amazing. It is so cool to see that regardless of what the diagnosis is, the age of the person, the sex of the person, they're from all over the world, the background, the thoughts that we have are so similar that
Yes.
it's like, oh my God, we're so connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just this instant family. Like, I
Yeah.
thought I was the only one thinking that way. And then
Yeah.
no, I thought that too. And it's really
Yeah. Oh,
special to see. So I'm excited. Like I just keep putting myself out there, and I'm like, we'll see where this goes. But I'm open, and I am determined to, end suffering when it comes to cancer. Because I saw that it's
awesome.
possible. And a lot of work. It's not like one boop,
Yeah.
done. I mean, it's a practice that
That's-
I still practice.
yeah. That's
I'm still
awesome.
getting scans frequently. There's like
Yeah.
my ovaries keep growing little cyst friends that get checked out, and
Yeah.
blood work. And I
Yeah.
have felt some new lumps that so far so good. But it's a practice to just
Yeah.
not attach to the story,
Yeah.
the scary story.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of it. I bet you will help people. Something is amazing about sharing the honest, raw experience, and it's a unique and not unique at all. And then just how helpful it seems to be for people. So I love that you've done that. It's beautiful.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Thank
And
you.
I love that you do that every day too.
Yes. Yeah, isn't it
It's a cool way to be in this world.
amazing?
We work ourselves, we support
Yeah.
others doing their work, which also does the work on ourselves. It's
Yeah.
pretty special.
Yeah. I sometimes think, like I actually, that's a piece of the gratitude of so happy for cancer, so happy for relationship troubles. I'm so happy that I got divorced. So happy. I mean, it's like kind of bizarre. Yeah, like, because then I get to be like in it and experiencing it from standing in the shoes of it and kind of watching, and then also noticing mind, thought just do what it does, want to survive, want to live, want to whatever it is, and that nothing's required. Just
Yep.
it's so great to question thought and relax, peace, and find peace, the peace that's here. The
Yep.
natural support,
It's
all the way full circle from what you were saying at the
always
very beginning.
there.
Yeah,
Just gets a little covered up when we're believing everything that's in our head.
Like what you said at the very beginning. I love it. Perfect full circle. Like you said, there you were. You heard, the truth is within. Go inside. You are, I had the same thing. It's like, I'm looking in here and what are you talking about? I don't even know how to even answer the question. Is it true? What? Like, it seems like it is. I don't know.
It's like, duh, yeah.
Right. And just to stay and see and like and kind of trust the process of, well, what else are you going to do? Ask the question.
Right. Right. And when you say, what else am I going to do? Like, I tried the else. It was just terrible. Like, it was
Yeah.
terrible and painful. And I saw like no end to my,
Yes.
so yeah, like it's
Yeah.
worth a try. And I hear people often say with the work, they're like, oh, like it's so hard to keep doing the work. And, I have also, of course, had that thought because it does take time and energy. And then I invite them to look like, well, what's harder? You know,
Yeah.
doing the work or not doing the work. And for me, when I'm not doing it and experiencing stress but not using it, oh man, life
Yeah.
is way harder than the 15-20 minutes it takes to go through one inquiry.
Yeah. It's like trying to that saying, trying to change is the fastest way to stay the same, or trying to go fast and hurry gets you kind of like stuck, on the merry-go-round here. I'm just like, okay, guess we have to, here's a new one, yeah, here's a thought.
Ongoing practice.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you
Bethany.
so
Thank
much
you.
for
Yeah.
hanging out with me. And
Yes.
I love this. I love that you do this.
Yeah. You're so welcome. Awesome.